You've just read a post that assaults what you know to be true. What do? You've just been accused of something that isn't true. What's your next move? This week we'll look at Hezekiah's reaction when he was confronted with a crisis. We're focusing in on chapter 37. Our story picks up where the northern kingdom of Israel has fallen to the Assyrian Empire. Over a period of 30 years, Israelites were deported from their homeland to different parts of the Assyrian Empire. At this point in Isaiah, the southern kingdom of Judah is at risk of the same fate. Sennacherib is the king of Assyria, and Hezekiah is the king of Judah. The Assyrians had already conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. You can see that Judah was surrounded. Now Sennacherib starts attacking the cities of Judah, and Hezekiah fights back. In response, the Assyrian king launched a full-on invasion of Judah. Hezekiah tried to appease the Assyrians by offering to pay whatever tribute they demanded. Sennacherib wasn't satisfied with this offer, and instead he sent his field commander to Jerusalem to publicly demand the surrender of King Hezekiah and the entire nation. Throughout chapter 36, the Assyrian commander publicly threatened Hezekiah's officials and the people of Jerusalem. He called into question their belief that God would protect them. The commander noted that the northern kingdom of Israel had already fallen and God had not stopped the Assyrian onslaught there. In chapter 37, we see Hezekiah receive a taunting letter from the Assyrians. The letter basically said, "Look around. All of these other countries were conquered and their gods, and you're next." Let's look at chapter 37, verse 14. Hezekiah took the letter from the messenger's hands, read it, then went up to the Lord's temple and spread it out before the Lord. Here are a couple of discussion questions. Have there been times in your life when God did not stop something bad from happening to you? Did this impact your faith? Discuss how Hezekiah's first response was to bring the request to God rather than react first and pray later. Now let's look at what Hezekiah prayed. Then Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, "Lord of armies, God of Israel, enthroned between the cherubim, you are God, you alone. Of all the kingdoms of the earth, you made the heavens and the earth. Listen closely, Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, Lord, and see. Hear all the words that Sennacherib has sent to mock the living God. Lord, it is true that the kings of Assyria have devastated all these countries and their lands. They have thrown their gods into the fire, for they were not gods but made from wood and stone by human hands. So they have destroyed them. Now, Lord our God, save us from his power, so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you, Lord, are God, you alone." Hezekiah addressed God as the Lord of armies, while the Assyrian army was on his doorstep. Indeed, God was in control of the Assyrian army, even if they didn't know it. He didn't argue that somehow the people of Judah deserved to be saved based on their character. Instead, Hezekiah argued that if Assyria won, God's own reputation would be damaged. Make no mistake, Hezekiah did ask God to save his people from the Assyrians, but he placed this desire in the context of what was most important. He wanted God to save them so that all the kingdoms of the earth would know that the Lord, God, was God alone. Here are a few discussion questions. When you pray, do you truly believe God will hear your request? Discuss why it might be hard to trust that God is in control of your situation. Looking at Hezekiah's example, what practical steps can we take to look to God for help in our lives? God's answer to Hezekiah came through a message from another person. In the very next verse, It says, "Then Isaiah sent a message to Hezekiah." Isaiah's message was one of hope. Basically, Isaiah told Hezekiah that God would save Judah. The rest of chapter 37 describes how and when God will do that. Take a moment now to read chapter 37, verses 21 through 38, and discuss the following. What was God's motive for saving Judah? Can you share a time when God used another person to bring you God's message? What are other ways that you have received a message from God in response to your prayers? Think of the emotional wreck that Hezekiah could have been after getting this taunting message from the Assyrian king. He could have believed it and acted in fear. He could have chosen to believe his fate was sealed. Have you ever believed a lie? Whether it's a lie you told yourself or a lie that someone else told you, it's a miserable moment to realize that you have believed a lie. Certainly, it's an even worse moment to realize that you acted based on a lie. Satan whispers lies to us on a daily basis, lies about ourselves, lies about God. How do you respond? When the Assyrian commander spouted lies about God, Hezekiah went to God with them. Here's a discussion question. Have you ever had that light bulb moment when you realized you were believing a lie? What caused the realization? As always, God kept his promise. Ultimately, he sent an angel who devastated the Assyrian army so that Sennacherib was forced to retreat. Within 20 years, Sennacherib would be killed by his own sons while worshiping his pagan god. Here's a discussion question. When you pray about the burdens and concerns in your life, do you ever stop and think about how God's answer to your prayers might glorify Him and make Him known to others? We hope you'll make comments in the comments section below that might encourage each other as you work through Isaiah. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.